Good morning. It's morning huddle time. Chad Prinky here, as always, along with my good friend, producer, co-host extraordinaire, Stacey
Stop.
Holden. Stacey.
Hey, how do you want us to install this water heater? And my coworker was like, I don't know, install the water heater. Like, why are you even asking me? He's like, well, I don't know if you know, but what you designed, it can't physically fit through the front door of this building.
My class is only 40 minutes. So we have to get this done in 40 minutes. You have to clean up in 40 minutes. And then it also, when you use the miter saw, a lot of kids are scared of the miter saw, and you just see the difference in their confidence when they come in here compared to when they leave. They're excited.
Be announcing a new county that's going to join us in Maryland, so we continue to spread it. And I'll say my peers across the country are starting to take this and adopt this at their local IEC chapters.
Either AI assistant tools, you have AI master builder tools, and then you have kind of a bit of both that are 1 foot in BIM, in current processes, and 1 foot in AI.
Said, Brett, in life, opportunity meets you at your level of preparation.
She said, here's the keys, go forth and do great things.
Good morning. It is morning huddle time. Chad Prinky here, as always, alongside Stacey Holzinger. Stacey, how are you this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you? Nice and refreshed from vacation?
Extremely refreshed. I got to tell you, in all sincerity, I was, as a group, our journey, well built. Our company started in 2021, and today we have 7 people. And in 21, it was like me and one other person. And 22, it was me and 2 other people. And 23, it was me and 4 other people. And now today we have this whole team, and it's still small, right? We're just an itty bitty company, but we're growing, darn it.
You are.
And, I mean, it's awesome. But this year was the first time since I started the business that I went on vacation and I really felt fully taken care of. Like the whole team took care of me and made sure that everything that needed to happen was happening, that everything I actually did need to respond to was surfaced, and that I didn't have to sort through my inbox. And I came back, and I'm gonna say, everybody's gonna be grumpy that I'm bragging, but I'm all caught up. It's a weird feeling. I don't even know what to do. It's really cool to have and I'm committed to making sure that's not just for me, but that everybody on our team, when they take vacations, feels the same way. It's I've never had a situation where I always feel like I'm kind of getting punished when I come back from vacation, right? It's like, oh, you went on vacation. Here's a whole bunch of pain for you to remind you.
Yeah. And people are respectful when you go on vacation. I think that's important too.
Yes, and our clients are awesome. They're they know how hard we work all the time, and I think they were excited to hear I was on vacation. Not like, okay, I guess we'll talk to you when you get back. So anyway, it was wonderful. So refreshed, and not only refreshed, but feeling like okay upon return, where I'm usually buried upon return, which is cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for asking. How have you been?
I've been good. I have, so we have spring break here. So my son's home. So if you hear any, he loves watching these marble races and country flags and screaming out his favorite country all the time. So I don't know if that's going to be going on in the background, but I told him to behave.
That's awesome.
No guarantees.
Look, I completely relate. It's the amount of times, Stacey, that there actually have been loud sounds in the back of the huddle that I've been like, how did that not show up on the recording? Yeah. It's pretty amazing, actually. It's pretty incredible. Hey, I had one quick question for you. I this is out of left field, but I'm wondering, are you paying attention to March Madness? Are you dialed into that at all? Do you do the tournaments and all that? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We had Houston winning everything. And then I had one my son had Houston winning. I had Kentucky. So what about you?
I have NC State and Purdue in the Final Four, but I had Iowa State winning, so I'm dead. But I thought Iowa State was gonna make a much bigger dent than they did, and I got to tell you, for the first time, not the first time, but I feel like progressively every year I'm getting more and more into the women's Final Four as
They're
well.
fun to watch. Yeah.
Awesome. In last night's game, Iowa, Caitlin, I can't remember her last name, darn it, but she's a beast. Like she is incredible to
Mhm.
to watch play the game. I read in a thing this morning that the coach from the opposite team, from the LSU team, said to her as she was shaking hands walking off the court, she goes, "Girl, I am glad you're done this year." She's like, "You've been killing me." So
Oh my God.
yeah,
I haven't watched any of it, but now I'm curious.
you got to get it. Yeah, this year has been it's been pretty awesome. Unfortunately, Maryland has not been the kind of force Maryland's been in years past, but it's still fantastic to watch.
Yeah, I've been to the Maryland games live, the women's team, and they were just so much fun to watch.
They're a consistent force.
Yeah.
Really fun to watch. So any darn way. Well, let's introduce our guest today. We've got Adam Stark coming on. I'm going to pop him up here on the screen. Adam, what's happening, buddy? Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me, and really excited for our conversation.
Sweet microphone game, Adam. I'm loving it.
Yeah,
looks good.
I'm glad that you called that out because I was going to.
Yeah. Stacey, we got to get you on these nice mics. Got to get you one of these bad boys.
Making me feel bad every week.
That's all right. You still sound you do. So Adam is co-founder of JetBuild, and he is also the host of a brand new podcast called the Veterans Who Build Show. We'll have him talk about both of those things a bit. Brandon's located in St. Louis, Missouri. And I love Adam, for you to tell us a little bit about your background. How did you end up? What is JetBuild? How did you end up getting into it? And then also talk a little bit about the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career working for builder owner operators in New York City. I was really on job sites for about 10 years, just managing projects, managing teams, building high-rise mixed-use properties, pretty much in the Northeast, more or less. And it took about 2 weeks for me to realize that Excel and email chains were not a means of managing hundreds of $millions of development work, right? In a very hands-on manner, right? So we weren't a hands-off developer. We would build, we'd sometimes self-perform, meaning we would hire the trades ourselves. And then later on, we would manage those assets. So, my co-founder and I, childhood friends, he also has a very similar career path trajectory. We sat down one day early on, soon after starting in the industry, and said, all right, well, how are we going to do this better, right? We can't continue with these siloed environments. We can't continue spending so much of our time understanding, who is responsible for what and when, why information is getting stuck. And that's the inception of Jet. Is we said, all right, well, why don't we create this central platform to manage all of our teams on, to manage all of the data that goes back and forth between contracting teams, design teams, developer teams, lender, city, insurance, right? All of the stakeholders that are involved in projects, and simply just make our lives easier, make everyone's lives easier as a result for centralizing all of this information.
Cool. Got it. So JetBuild's a software platform that is designed to cover all that stuff, and it's in the brainchild occurred when you were actually in the trenches doing the work for a development company and saying, hold on, this is super inefficient.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's neat about our journey is we were building out the platform. We were building out Jet really just for our own needs for a few years before we realized that, we actually just created this very robust platform that's working really well for, a significant amount of development and construction. Why don't we start testing it with the market? So, the entire process of, beta, MVP, building out a product and a platform was in the trenches, right? We were literally doing it for ourselves, for our projects, for our stakeholders, which allowed us to create not only a very robust platform, but something that is very intuitive, very easy to use.
Awesome. So that's been in operation now, I guess, for coming up on 2 years. Who is the product designed for? Is it designed for the development community or for the contracting community?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. Generally speaking, our ICP, ideal customer profile, is going to be the developer, the owner, and this is something I know we're gonna hash out, talk about why. That said, I mean, there's lots of applicable tools for anybody who is managing the project, right? So you have a lot of developers who are, never stepping foot on a project or only stepping foot maybe once a month. So therefore, it should be the GC perhaps to own the platform, or it
a
could be
construction manager in between,
exactly,
or what have you.
own a rep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, cool. And before I launch headlong into that, I do want to create a little bit of space for, you know what? Maybe we'll circle back to the Veterans Who Build podcast later. I want to dive into this topic, and I do want to hear about the podcast, but I don't want to jump back and forth too much.
Sure.
So let's dive in here with that. Exactly what you said. Hey, so you've designed this thing for owners, and you specifically said owners, and then we've been kind of trading this term owners and developers back and forth. But Adam, when I think about owners, and just most of our audience knows exactly what the heck I'm talking about, but I'm going to take 10 seconds and just say that when we're using owners in this context, we're not talking about owners of construction companies. We're talking about the owners who are behind construction, the people who are funding whatever construction is going on, be that a bridge and the owner is New York City, or Baltimore, right? Which is definitely going to be an owner here coming up on a bridge, rebuild in Baltimore, or whether it's a high-rise multifamily building where the owner is a developer, or whether it is a school where the owner is a county, a public school, or whatever else. So when you built Jet Build, obviously you had when you built Jet, that is, you had this experience as a developer, which is one type of owner. Is the platform really meant for all owners or for developers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I kind of combine those, two terms as being one. Whoever is, as you put it, right, the one essentially funding the project, at least from that degree. I mean, we could go even more macro and start talking about lenders, right? Why are lenders not requiring a platform? So, I could
keep stepping backward.
Exactly.
The source of the money, right? Yeah.
Which is, by the way, something I question as well, and I could talk on that front. But from the developer's perspective, what I call as a developer owner, at least that was my experience when I started in the industry. What I was seeing, what was happening is we had to be this middle person between our contracting teams, the design teams, and the lender, and then everything in between. So to be the one mandating a platform and owning that process, it removed a lot of what I like to call finger pointing across those stakeholders, across those teams, because accountability became transparent, right? It became obvious. It became easy to reference. Data was in front of everyone. Assigning accountability was automated. So it basically created a seamless process of who is responsible for what and when across all of these teams. So that I'm just defining developer owner as one entity.
So,
really.
So it could be a school system. It could be
Correct.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's whoever's behind the funding of the that's helpful for me to understand. And I think overall, I'm excited about technology in general that is aimed at the owner. That not just technology, but that any advancements that are aimed at the owner behind construction projects, because I have found that in the construction industry, things take forever to be adopted. Advancements, progress of any kind takes a long time to be adopted, with the exception of this one thing, which is if the owners are driving it, it happens to go really, really freaking fast. And so, I think about all the different advancements in the construction industry that are at various stages of adoption, offsite construction, even BIM, and smart 4D design and things like that. If it's not driven by the owner in that market, in that geography, in that type of construction, so on, it's not been adopted. It's not. It's a long ways behind. So if you look at in the Mid-Atlantic, for example, the developer-driven construction, I'll call it just apartments for the sake of simplicity. BIM in apartments is rare, you know, but BIM in colleges and universities is commonplace. The only difference is the owner and what they seem to care about. So let's talk about owner-driven advancements and really what types of advancements. How, what can we be bringing to the mainstream through owners? What are some of the things that you think are advancements that we should be driving through owners?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just called out is a great example, right? You just have two different project types. Depending on the owner, they'll either want a BIM process or they won't, and that's how the project will be driven. So, a great example, and that's the reality. In terms of how do we create an ecosystem where we're driving innovation and driving technology, I always like to start off with the first and foremost. Always give credit to all of the site operators. I mean, none of what they're doing is easy, and they're building what all of us need and use day to day, whether that be roads, homes, offices, hospitals, etc. So always kudos and shout out to them. That said, what becomes an obvious friction point are I break it into kind of two dynamics. One is you have people who are doing literal manual labor in complex environments. So, right, it's tough to add anything to that dynamic, right? It's tough to squeeze any additional, whether it be technology, whether it be hardware, whatever it is. Tough to do that. And then the second part of that is this stakeholder word that I keep using, where you have dozens of companies who need to collaborate, right? So again, it's kind of that finger pointing scenario where it's to say, well, is that my platform? Is that my technology? Is that my solution? Or is it theirs to implement or theirs to use and me to just onboard onto? So the way I kind of look at it, and again, to your point in terms of owner driven, the way we see it is if you're implementing a core management solution, for example, JetBuild, onto a project that isn't price gouging to begin with, and that is easy to use. And what I mean by easy to use is, so long as you have, I don't know, a year in the industry and understand what an RFI, a Gantt schedule, a budget looks like, a submittal process, so long as you just have some baseline understanding of what happens on a construction site, you're going to understand, you should be able to understand how to use your core solution in, 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day maximum. It shouldn't be this lengthy process. So if we're starting with the core technology stack as a simple and cost-effective solution, how will that open up, possibility to additional technologies? So that's kind of how we look at it, right? How will that free up your time as it relates to just simple automations, right? How will it free up your time in terms of understanding who's responsible for what and when, removing that kind of finger pointing, removing the time waste in understanding, why things went wrong. So that's the way that we look at it. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think it's that's really got at the core of why any of this stuff even matters is eliminating waste, driving efficiency, cost savings, better quality product at the end of the day. When you survey the entire landscape of advancements in the construction industry from where you sit, and obviously it's a unique perspective, just like all of us, we all have our perch, right, that we evaluate things from. But from where you sit, what are the advancements that are most lacking? They're here, they're great, we should be using them, and we're freaking not. Right? Like what is wrong with us? What are the things that are sitting there underutilized when it comes to advancements in the building industry?
I gotta, I guess, not give this attractive answer and stick to what I've been saying, which is uniformed management, right? So it's making teams understand, making trades, making whatever the company is. I don't even want to pinpoint trades. It could be the developer as well. Making sure that people are getting on a central platform so that collaboration could occur in the efficient manner that exists, right? I just keep going back to the core of the problem, because we look at the lack of productivity increase that hasn't occurred over the past decade. especially in relativity to other markets, other industries. And, I don't think that throwing, additional, I don't know, AI stuff at the problem is going to do much if the core hasn't changed, the core hasn't been fixed to begin with, right? So I think that moving away from this concept that I hear all the time, right? Oh, well, my trades are not going to be able to use it. And, this isn't saying trades are telling me this. This is saying either GCs or owners are saying this to me. And I think it's a silly concept where they'll tell me, oh, they're not tech savvy, they're not going to get on board. So we have to move away from that concept. I mean, we're in 2024, right? Everybody knows how to use a smartphone. So how is it that you're not going to be able to log into a project management software and upload an invoice or upload or respond to an RFI, right? So I think that once we really just separate ourselves from that dated mindset, that's when we can really start to implement that core, that foundation of technology. And then from there, start leveraging some really neat technologies like drone imaging, like AI for concrete, or I should say sensors for concrete pouring to create efficiency there, AI for safety, whether that be cameras on helmets or a handful of other solutions that exist. And all of those solutions can and should plug into that core, right? That foundation of a technology stack. And therefore, we can start to use data in a very smart way.
I love it. And it's a really hard thing to argue with. And I'll be honest, it's not at the top of my list from my perch, but I'm also sitting here going, maybe the dude's right. I think there's a clear case to be made that until that foundational communication tool, the tool that we all agree we're running this project in, all of us are running this project in this place, there is just a massive risk of inefficiency and miscommunication and those types of things. And it's like I say, it's really hard to argue against. I tend to lead more toward more innovative delivery methods and the simple like elimination of low bid procurement is just something that is so antiquated and dumb and sets owners up for paying way more money than if they choose any other delivery method. Low bid is the fastest way to spend more money. That's to me like the most antiquated and the thing that we just need to get rid of. But different topic for a different show, we could argue that. But I can't argue with what you're saying is a real gap. One quick question for you though, man, and this is maybe put you on the hot seat for a second, but how do we decide what's the foundation we should be operating on? And I think maybe what you're about to tell me is that the owner ought to decide.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that exactly what you brought up. First, I also want to say I agree with you in terms of that pre-con element, that estimating element. That has to also improve. And all of these things need to wrap together, right? I mean, there needs to be improvement across all stages and across all teams. And now to answer your question right now, in terms of how do we decide? Absolutely. I mean, that's the issue we were seeing when we were in industry before, we created Jet as a company and, started working that as a company was, you could have your GCs come on board, your architects come on board, that, by the way, the developer / owner is hiring, right? They're all saying, oh, I want to use this system, I want to use that system. Right. So how does that work for you as the developer owner who's hiring and paying all these trades, who is then managing or selling that asset later? How does that help you and the project? I mean, it doesn't. It does the opposite, right? It creates that finger pointing. It creates disconnect. It creates siloed environments of documents and communication and data. So that's why we say, as a developer, why is it that you are not mandating that product? And I think the last thing that I found to be very funny is the developer is typically paying for these products regardless of if they're using it or not. And how that works is there's going to be, either a tech budget line item.
It's in the general
conditions. Exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be there baked in somewhere. So you, the developer, are actually paying for it, but you're gaining you're not gaining value out of it. You're not the owner of that product, and you don't have the ability to ensure your teams are actually going to use it, right? Because the GC comes on, they're not hiring and can't enforce the architect to onboard, for example.
Yeah. The challenge that I see, Adam, and I'm sure you've thought about this long and hard and confronted it directly, but what I've seen, there are owners. So when I think about certain school districts mandate, hey, everybody's operating inside this platform, and then from time to time, developers, though you're right, I don't see developers direct that traffic as much as they could, but I'll see certain owner types who will drive the bus and say, this is the platform we're using. It does create a bit of a challenge for the general contractor, for the trades, and even for the design community to become fluent in all of these different platforms. So all of a sudden, I'm running one project over here on platform A. I'm running this one on platform B. I'm running this one on platform C. My team doesn't have so all of a sudden, as a general contractor, my team doesn't have a platform. My team uses whatever platform our owner selects, and we have 20 owners who use 20 different platforms. So my team spends half their freaking time learning technology.
Mhm.
And that becomes painful for the general contractor, and then the downstream impacts on the trade contractors then tend to be, I mean, obviously you got 30, 40, 50 trades on a given, specialty contractors on a given project that have to deal with all of this technology stuff. So candidly, what's your answer to that, man? Like how do I go and tell my clients who are all I do work with some owners, but tell all my clients, and Stacy tell all her clients, hey, everybody should be comfortable working on whatever platform the owner selects, when we also know the realities of navigating dozens of technology platforms.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, great call out. I absolutely agree. Where that is an element of the problem, right? Is you have a bunch of different solutions, you have a bunch of different companies, everybody's working on different projects, and that creates a lot to absorb and understand how to use, et cetera. That said, we understand that, we recognize that, and we address that head on. There's no simple answer as if we could ignore that reality exists. However, what we do enable teams to use is a simple product, right? I mean, if I gave you, I don't know if you're using an iPhone or an Android, if I give you the opposite of whatever you're using today, are you going to need more than, 30 minutes to understand how to send an email, respond to a message, take a picture, send that picture? I mean, you're not, right? Like, nobody today is going to need more than, whatever it is, 30 minutes a day, 2 days, 3 days maximum, to understand how to use a product that is built modern, that is built like everything we're used to. And that's the way that we address it. And in supporting that process and supporting that decision to use Jeff, for example, is we're very hands-on. I like to call it concierge support. So, if you as a license holder need help, we're here. If your stakeholders need help, we're here to help them, right? That said, going a little bit more technical is the permission control. So we have several layers of permission controls, down to the extent where, for example, if you wanted to onboard, your sheetrock person, and they only needed access to, R5's drawings and punch list. So they log in, they see only those 3 solutions. Now you can even go a further layer, right? Just being super, getting in the weeds here. You can add individual users or companies and provide them access only to what they've been assigned to. So, I mean, you really just can't get easier than that, where you're logging into a product and you see in your face, oh, I have these 5 action items. You would click it, and similar to any product, like an email, like your phone, like a whatever, you understand, okay, I type a message, I press enter to send, I drag and drop a file. I mean, it couldn't be simpler, right? So going back to my, statement of how do we see change? And that's to say, we have to get away from this headspace that, we're not tech savvy, we can't use product. I mean, that's a fair response if you're talking about like BIM robust modeling craziness, right? But we're not. We're talking about centralizing the way that you manage your projects, centralizing how you execute your projects and collaborate.
Yeah. I'm hearing you, and I think it becomes less and less an issue for future generations. I think I think we are in a growing pain moment in time where there are a lot of people who are intimidated by technology, and I agree with you that that's not a an okay reason to say we can't do X or we can't do Y. But I do think there, and I'm preaching to the choir. I'm sure you're living it, every day, where there's adoption questions and struggles that people are complaining about and encountering. But yeah, I do think that more and more digital natives, such as yourself, right, are getting to a place where it's like, dude, like it's just clicking here versus clicking there. They basically all work the same. It's all good, right?
Yeah.
It's a question of which platform you trust more and which you feel like has best support and things like that, right? So, all right, well, cool. I got to pause here for a moment and thank our sponsors. I want to make sure that we do that. We're gaining viewers and subscribers every single week, and it's through the efforts and funding that these guys have been providing us. So I'll start by thanking the Marsh McLennan Agency. Marsh McLennan is a full service insurance bonding agency that represents more contractors than really any other group that I know. And certainly the middle market is extremely well served by Marsh McLennan Agency across the country. Great group of people. Second is Sandy Spring Bank. They are a regional bank based in Maryland. They focus on the small to mid-size business community and have a ton of contractor clients, really understand the needs of that business. So Sandy Spring Bank, want to shout out those guys. Next is Lawrence Law. It is a boutique law firm based in Baltimore with an office also in New York City. Great group of people who truly understand how to protect contractors. And so if you're a contractor and you don't have a lawyer that you trust, this is a go-to relationship that I would strongly recommend. And then lastly is Katz Abosch, another strategic partner for contractors that I know lots of clients of ours work with Katz Abosch, big fans of not only their tax and accounting and audit work, but also of their consulting capacity and ability to just provide really good advice for what's going on in the construction industry. So thank you to our 4 sponsors. We very much appreciate you, and hope that your business is growing as we're growing our audience. So let's so I want to talk about specifically AI. I want to talk about how AI impacts developers and what are some of the top 2 or 3 AI advancements that are going to really make an impact for developers.
Yeah, I mean, before touching on impact, I have to call out the fact that AI only begins to actually work well once data is compiled, right? Once it's indexed and compiled. So if you start in 3 years from now, then you're going to need that much more time to compile and own that data in order to create smart AI tools. So
Totally
the sooner
agree.
you start,
Yep.
so the sooner you start.
It's funny enough. I was
Yeah,
just talking with a client of mine this morning who's begun this, something that we strongly recommend for a lot of. I mean, honestly, almost every contractor, if you're ready for it. Big fans of time tracking for project management and superintendent staff, and really having people apply their time to different projects and different cost codes and things like that, which is a step beyond what most contractors are doing. And they're about 6 months in to the exercise, and they're like, all right, what's the data say? And I'm like, sorry guys, keep going. It's going to be a while by the time we have any really useful data. We need a lot of completed projects before. But the good news is that you're doing it now. And so once we get 100 projects under our belt this way, you're going to start to get some pretty amazing insights. So couldn't agree with you more. If you're not tracking, there's no point. You got to begin tracking and indexing data before you can actually start using AI to value. So with that as a disclaimer, what are some of the AIs that are going to make the biggest impact for developers?
Yeah, it's going to be able to produce what I like to call smart reporting or proactive decision making, and it's essentially compiling the information project by project and then providing whoever the license holder is with a more macro understanding of, okay, this specific line of business or project type was more successful in terms of budget and schedule. This project type had XYZ issues, whether they were specifications or submittal problems, whether they were schedule problems, whatever it may be across the product. and be able to say, all right, well, before you start this next, asset class in this X general region, take a look at these issues that you've had in your past 2 projects, and perhaps, resolve for that before you find yourself in a delay or a change order. And same thing with change orders, right? Being able to read that and say, okay, well, where were your change orders for your past few projects? Why did those happen? Here, take a look at this before you start next. So really just being able to provide with, just smart reporting so that you don't have to be scrambling so much.
That's excellent. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you see coming down the line that's particularly exciting on the AI front?
Yeah, I like the, not from the developer's perspective. I think more so from the, trades or operators perspective is, I kind of alluded to it before, was the safety solutions. I think that's really, really needed and important, which also ties into what you're saying in regard to time tracking for teams. So I think those overlap. And then also probably the imaging. So like drone imaging, which also allows for kind of smart project status understanding. So I think those 2 products are like, they exist, and I'm pretty sure they work very well, and will continue to work well, right? So it's not like some far out thing like I've seen before, which is pretty nuts, is the robots for job sites. So that robots are more future. The tools I mentioned are really, you could really start leveraging them today.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that the fundamental piece of this, that my big takeaway, is excited as we all are about, and scared to some extent as we all are about advancements in artificial intelligence, there's a data entry component and data management component that if it's not there, you don't get the benefit. Mm-hmm. So that goes back to your essential point, which is we really do need to get our foundational platform in place, and we've got to all be communicating and managing from a single point. So I'm sold on that. I'd like to shift gears and learn a little bit about your podcast. You've got the Veterans Who Build podcast. You yourself, I know, are a veteran. Talk a little bit about what the purpose of the podcast, and maybe a little bit of what inspired you to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Veterans Who Build show, it's for veterans in the built environment. So that's really everything between a site super to a lender to a real estate insurance provider. So very broad in the sense that everything that has to do built environment, real estate, etc. And the core purpose of the show is to create a roadmap per se for veterans in terms of what were those transition periods like from military to civilian to built environment. Because that's a just very difficult time, generally speaking, for veterans making those shifts in life. And then the second kind of key element is translatable skill sets, military to built environment. And the way that we structure the show is essentially chronological order. So to allow for the veteran to provide their kind of life story, so kind of childhood, why they wanted to serve, where they served, going through their service itself, and then now again, touching on that kind of key element of the show is that roadmap point of view of, what advice would you give yourself when you transition from military to civilian life, and then civilian to professional career, built environment. And then, we go through their professional career, and then also touch on, as we go through that conversation, translatable skill sets. So, I think these are 2 elements, the transition periods and translatable skills, that a lot of veterans really struggle with. And it's no secret whatsoever. And really every veteran can relate. So the goal and the inspiration is to just help those that are in those phases, perhaps hear something that they can relate to, and improve, their process for themselves. So that's the show, and that's the purpose.
I think that's awesome. I think that's really, that's a valuable subject. And, without having had that experience myself, I am it's the right word, kind of a student of human experience. I'm a fiend for for hearing stories about, different life experiences. And I think even if you haven't had that experience yourself, it enriches your understanding of the overall human experience. And there are always things that you can have empathy for and that you can relate to, even if that's not your story. So I'll be tuning in. I look forward
thank
to
you.
it. And I think I have a guest for you. I won't talk about him here, but if you want to message me separately, I had an awesome conversation with a fella in January who spent, I think, 12 years in active deployed duty. That might be plus or minus 3 or 4 years or something like that. But just had a phenomenal, insightful conversation about what that transition was like for him, and I think he could be an inspiring guest for you. So I hope that I can pass that information. I hope that he's not super embarrassed or scared to be on a podcast either. I hope that's not for everybody. It's not
for everyone.
Yeah. The more the merrier from my perspective. So yeah, I'll touch base with you after to get that person's contact. And some other an additional angle I'd like to include in regard to the show that I heard from a listener, and I thought it was really interesting insight was this person is a relative of a veteran, and she told me that just hearing these other people's stories, other veteran stories, she was able to relate to her veteran relative better because she was able to just hear what their mindset is and was, what they went through, and therefore create some just better form of relatability. So it's really just important to talk about. And I want to give a shout out to the Sean Ryan Show, which is what started getting me thinking about all of what I'm talking about in terms of the purpose of my show. Sean Ryan has a few million subscribers. He has veterans on his show. I mean, pretty much 90% of the show is veterans, and they just go through their story, generally speaking. And I was just able to relate with a lot of what these veterans were saying, and it was just a shocking thing to hear, where I wasn't even aware of my own struggles or my own just nuances day to day, but I all of a sudden was, just because I heard another veteran talking about it. So it supports veterans, but it also supports those who are connected to veterans, whether that be personal or professional.
Yeah, I love it, and wish you all the best with that show, and we'll be an advocate for you. Please feel free to pass along stuff that you feel our audience ought to be exposed to, and we'll happily promote that along with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Adam, anything else before we wrap up? I've really appreciated the conversation and want to make sure that you've got an opportunity to say anything that we've missed.
Now we covered it all. My two plugs here are Jet Build and the Veterans Who Build Show. We covered both of those and had a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. And we'll look forward to keeping in touch with you. And again, all the best from here.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, Stacy, let's talk a little bit about, what, before we do that, I hope it's okay. I'm going to address, I see one comment that came through was somebody, and I love, by the way, when people share alternative points of view, right? So I made this statement that I feel like low bid procurement is a major, a need for improvement in the construction industry. And I have obviously my reasons for saying that, and I feel strongly about those things. But somebody in the chat, Glenn, whose last name I could try, but I will avoid. But Glenn said, hey, if everything else is equal, low bid is by far the best way to choose a contractor. And I love dissenting viewpoints, and I bet you that Glenn has some really valuable insights as to why he feels that way. And I'll just comment to Glenn briefly here, and knowing that he can't comment back probably at enough time for us to make it on the show, I would invite Glenn to communicate, and by the way, any guest, or I'm sorry, any audience member, always to share your perspectives. And I'm very open to being wrong, and find that I regularly am. But the reason that I have the perspective that I have is that rarely things are equal. There are very rarely contractors that are truly equally capable of doing the job. There are rarely individual managers on those projects who are equally capable of executing at the same level. There are rarely the same exact bonding capacities, and there are rarely plans that are all the way complete and put people in a position to be truly equal. And so what I find is that in a low bid procurement model, often the wrong contractors are selected because they're not the right people to do that job. Just because they were less expensive doesn't make them the right person to do the job. And furthermore, there are usually meaningful gaps in the plans that create lots of opportunities for people to look low who aren't actually low, and that'll eventually come out in the rest of the project. So that's the gist, and I could talk about it for literally hours. I love the discussion, and not, by the way, making my case, just sharing my experience, and would love to engage with anybody who would like to share an alternative experience with us. I think some of the best conversations are ones where we argue, but where we argue the point, not as with each other. So Glenn, thank you for sharing a dissenting view, and I'd encourage everybody to do that. Stacy, what do we have?
A hot topic.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Always.
Right.
So next week we have mergers and acquisitions, and I believe Matt will be joining us.
Yes. Yeah. So I will be out next week due to a commitment for a couple of full days with a client, and Matt is jumping in as a co-host with Mark Zweig, who is our guest. And Mark and Matt are actually friends, which is a great opportunity to bring a couple of people on who are going to have a natural, easy conversation. And Mark heads up a consulting company that's actually similar to what Wellbuilt does, that has primarily their focus is in the architecture and engineering community, and ours is in the contracting community. So we're very friendly, and we partner up on stuff. They've done tons of merger and acquisition advisory, and they're going to talk a lot about what it takes to get your company ready for sale, and some of the misnomers and things like that.
Yeah, we talked about this issue before, and it was a pretty good episode. So there's a lot of people in that they're thinking about that, and their strategic plans, and who's going to be taking over, if they're going to sell the company, and things like that. So,
yep, agreed. And everybody's got to exit sometime.
Yeah, you need a plan,
right? You can exit without a plan, and I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. So this will be a good conversation for those who are thinking of exiting. And maybe those who are working inside companies that are inevitably going to experience this transition. They just will, unless it's a publicly traded company, which the large majority of contracting companies are not. You're going to be going through this same process. So, good. Hey, Stacy, is there anything you have going on that you want to plug before we wrap?
I am hiring for a construction marketing intern. I would like to start by the end of April for 6 months. It's a paid opportunity. So I did post about that. I'm looking for a college student, junior or senior, possibly, to help me with a social campaign that we're working on that's going to be launched in August or September this year.
Sweet.
I reached out to a couple contractors. I'm looking for Maryland contractors that want to participate. So if you're interested and you want to support the skill trades, please contact me. Would love to work with you this summer.
Sweet.
Can't say too much, but privately, if you're interested, I'd love to talk to you about what I'm working on.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm really glad that I asked you that question. I was like,
quiet today.
Sometimes I put you on the spot and I feel bad. This time I feel really good that I put you on the spot. That's really good.
I know. Thanks for reminding me. I did want to bring that up. So.
Oh, it's great. Thank you. And I want to make sure that one quick thing that I'll plug while we have the opportunity is we've got a boot camp coming up, a leadership boot camp from May 6th through May 8th. This is a core leadership and executive readiness boot camp. You can sign up for just the core leadership components, which are really a good fit for anybody who is in a management role in the construction industry today. So whether that's field management or project management or even departmental management in HR and accounting or whatever, if you're managing humans in the construction industry, the leadership boot camp's a good fit. And then the executive boot camp is the third day. And that will be specifically geared toward, how to manage a P&L and, business development, some of the things that really you're called upon to do as you move into an executive leadership level in a construction company. So do check out our leadership boot camp. And then I always want to steer people to the morninghuddleconstructionshow.com website. Make sure you sign up for our newsletter and subscribe on wherever you consume your podcasts. I'm always amazed to hear where people are finding our show. And so please make sure that wherever it is you like to consume podcasts, you're subscribed on that channel. Most people don't consume them on LinkedIn Live. So for our live audience here, if you're like, wow, this is the first time I've checked this show out live, I wish this was on Apple Podcasts, or I wish this was on Spotify. It is. Make sure that you go over to the platform of choice so that you're not just trying to catch us when you happen to be stationary and able to catch the live stream. So I think that's all I've got. Stacey, anything else to add before we wrap?
Nope, that's it. So I will see you in 2 weeks.
That's right. Yes. And you will see Matt next week.
Yes.
And I'm sure he's going to do an awesome job per usual. So I look forward to watching the show.
All right. Have a great one.
All right. Thank you. See ya. Bye-bye.